Jai Hind and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Adi Achint. A big question that is lurking in everyone's mind who reads geopolitics and strategic affairs is USA today a declining superpower? As you can see, I have with me Lieutenant General PG Kamath, PVSM, AVSM, YSM, SM, a general who retired from the Indian Army after a long and illustrious career, culminating to be the commandant of the Army War College. Today, a strategic thinker, a speaker, and a very, very good writer. I'm a big fan of his writing. Thank you so much, sir, for joining me today to answer this question for all of us. Is USA a declining superpower?
Thank you, Adi. I know you have meant why it is a declining superpower. There are some reasons. In the beginning of the year, we are distressed also on the 6th January 2021, the Capitol Hill riots, which really where Trump told in no uncertain terms, if you don't fight like hell, you're going to have it, no, you'll not have a country anymore. And instigated the people in order to overturn the elections. And at the end of it, 5 died, only 1 was shot, the rest died due to other causes. 138 police officers were injured. And what it calls 638 were charged later for arson. And Trump himself was impeached but saved by the Senate. Because of the social media, the internet, influencers which are there all around, it's not a common problem with the United States itself. It's a worldwide phenomenon. We have seen in our CAA riots also on 14th December 2019, when Sonia Gandhi told in Ramlila Maidan, "Aar paar ki ladai, you have to save now, fight to the finish." There were again riots which continued for a couple of months, and it actually became intense during the President Trump's visit from 23rd February to 29th February. Unfortunately, 54 poor people died due to communal clashes. We have to understand what repercussions. Senior leaders, political leaders have to be very responsible while taking the people onto the streets. But it's a worldwide, I do not say any particular country has become weak. This is a general transformation of the society to the information overflow. It has happened in France, it has happened in Germany, it has happened in Netherlands, it has happened in the East European countries. Everywhere it is happening, it has to be taken as a process of transformation of the society. So, however, the point which you are trying to make and which you have in your mind, there is a political divide in USA. Though there are 2 major parties and other minor insignificant parties like Green Party, a Libertarian Party, but there are prominently 2 parties. Either you have the blue donkey or the red elephant, that's the Republican or Democrats. There is no third opinion. There are no different shades of blue and different shades of green, red. So everyone has to come into one of these. That means your political divide is very stark in USA because of the 2 major parties. Whereas in India, there is a left, there is centrist, right, leftist, left, rightist. Innumerable parties are there which can accommodate different personal, individual opinions and give them a platform in order to air their views. Because of this, there is a great political divide in USA. Second, why you may presume there is a declining is due to the racial divide. Whether you like it or not, please, 1865, at the end of the American Civil War, the 13th Amendment was passed telling there was an abolition of slavery. Okay? Fine. For the next act to come, it was 1964 as Civil Rights Acts. It took 100 years to just graduate from abolition of slavery to give rights to the colored people in USA. You have to see, there is, whatever you may say, that there is a racial divide in USA. You have seen during President Trump's tenure also, Black Lives Matter, and what riots were there in different parts of the country. Then you come to the economic divide in the society, which is there in every society. India itself has 1% of the people richest have the 50% of the country's wealth, and 10% have nearly 78% of the country's wealth. So also United States. It's just to give you a figure, 236 million whites have per capita income 36,962 US dollars per year. But when you come to the 41.6 blacks, it is 2/3 of what the whites are. When you come to Asians, it is one of the highest, 40,872 78 US dollars. This is the 2018 figure. And when you come to the Indians, 4.1 million, we are the highest with 55,298 US dollars per. So we are the highest. And also there is what we call a economic divide, but the economic divide is across in every country. So you cannot pinpoint. And also these Western economies, United States of America, have also reached their saturation. You can't expect US to rise 8% unless there is very disruptive technology or something which has come. 0.51% rise for US, Japan, or European country is considered a substantive growth in the GDP. It can't be more. So that has to be understood, and hence, unless there is a disruptive technology like the fracking technology, which was old, which has been refined now, it has made United States of America the greatest oil producer, more than Saudi Arabia. See how the geopolitics has already changed due to this. So if I don't think so, though this political divide and all we see is there, but US as such cannot be called as a decline in power.
Sure, sir. I think you made a very interesting point with regards to the internal divide of the Americans, and that's something that we've been seeing happening for a long, long time. We see the whole issues that took place and the riot that took place, as you mentioned, in 1960s during the civil rights movement. One of the things that internally speaking, sir, do you think that this divide is actually strong enough today to affect United States geopolitics around the world, or is it just a wobble that we are seeing because of drastic leadership change from a very, very power-packed Trump to a very mellow sort of a Biden? Is that what you're seeing right now internally, sir?
See, internally, politics is one of the political power, one of the instruments of national power, political power, your science and technological power, your military power, your diplomatic power, your soft power. All these powers are instruments. Now, what is literally happening is the political power of United States is based on very, very strong fundamentals of a democracy and constitution. I do not think that this will have any adverse effect in the functioning of the United States of America as the foremost power for the foreseeable times to come.
Interesting, sir. You mentioned Afghanistan, sir. I'm going to jump into that, and that people have used many terms for Afghanistan. We've gone from debacle to disaster to crisis to withdrawal to surrender to so many terms have been used to describe what happened in Afghanistan. I think as an ally or a partner, there'll be a lingering thought or a bad taste in somebody else back of the mouth that will this happen to me if I, in case jump into a battle with the US? And how do you see that situation with regards to the United States partnerships, allies around the world? Even India is included in that entire list. How do you see that the events in Afghanistan connecting with this, sir?
Yes, Adi, what I would like to say, if there is any nation which has done for the world, though it is pursuing USA's national interest, it has done for so much for the world, we cannot really negate its role. Many people have piggy-eyed on the security provided by the United States of America all over the world. From a bipolar world before 91 to a single pole now, and now it is multipolar. All said and done, it is they who have done so much contributed to the world peace. Though they say people may disagree with me. Now, let's state just when Kuwait was invaded by Iraq and annexed by Iraq, who liberated Kuwait? United States of America. When the Al Qaeda came and did that 9/11, who took back Afghanistan from the Taliban? United States of America. The kingpin of the Al Qaeda, Osama bin Laden, who killed him, was in Abbottabad in Pakistan, United States of America. When Baghdadi's caliphate was formed in Syria and ISIL area, ISIL in the Levant, who 13 bases US had established in that Levant, and who killed Baghdadi in the end? United States of America. So we cannot just because of one odd incident. There have been fiascos. Vietnam was a fiasco. Grenada was a success. Iraq was a success. Afghanistan was a failure. Means failure now in retrospect. It was not a failure in the last 20 years.
Well, yeah.
Now, how can we say that USA has forsaken its allies? I just want to give you a bit of figures so that our listeners can understand. Military men of America, 2,461 military men were killed. 20,752 were wounded. 1,822 civil contractors died. 18 CIA operatives died. More than $2 trillion expended. Raised a force of 350,000 Afghan National Security Defense Forces. Gave them an air force of almost 180 airplanes and helicopters, the most modern ones. Equipped them worth of $20 billion worth of weapons, equipment, and ammunition. Even now, US, a part of the Air Force, is dedicated and based in Qatar in order to come to the aid of the real Afghanistan, may not be Taliban. Now, with all these sacrifices, how do we say that US is not taking care of its allies? Whatever the other NATO countries were symbolic, one or Britain or something were there. Otherwise, entire effort to bring the world peace, Al Qaeda and ISIL, who did it? United States of America. Let's give the devil his due. I am not for him throughout. I understand what he did to us in 1971 ops, the Kissinger-Nixon combination. I am aware of it. But at the same time, it was John F. Kennedy, after 1962 debacle, it flew all the weapons, arms, ammunition, everything to India, was again the Americans. So we should have no doubts about this. Now coming to Vietnam itself, there are certain fiascos which happened. First and foremost is what you call, there was a weak human intelligence. Even the Defense Secretary Austin was telling till the end that we will fight it out and they will do, and he was taken by surprise. He himself says, I never knew they would, Afghan National Security Forces will melt away without firing a shot. This is the word from Austin himself. This weak human intelligence had absolutely, when President Biden, Trump actually, decided that we'll leave, and Biden continued with the policy to leave Afghanistan. What was the crux point? That Afghan National Security Forces will defend Afghanistan, which didn't happen. It was an absolute error of judgment. Then second biggest fiasco is, which was done by President Trump. How did he do the Doha agreement with the Taliban, who has literally no locus standi for an agreement on Afghanistan? It is a terror force. You called good Taliban, bad Taliban, whatever, medium Taliban and all, you called them and negotiated. What states did they have when Karzai and Ghazi and all were sitting here? So there was no reason for them to give that credibility and of representing Afghanistan and concluding Doha Agreement in February 2020. Then the next major, absolutely major fiasco or major fault of his is not reading Pakistan correctly. Perfidy of Pakistan is never understood by them. They made them the most favored non-NATO ally. And where was Osama found? In Abbottabad, next to the military academy. Al-Zawri, who thought he has died and all, is not there. The head of Al-Qaeda after Osama bin Laden has come out nicely refreshed, treated, and all. He has come pink of health in order to come back. Where was he? In Pakistan. Where was this Taliban from 2001 to 2021? Who gave it sanctuary? Who gave it logistics? Who trained this Taliban? Who gave them weapons, equipment, and nurtured them in the last 20 years? Does it need any expert to tell you that? Where were these fellows in the last 2 decades? They were in Pakistan. There is a seminary, Darul Ulum Haqqaniya. This is at Akhora Khatak, about 55-56 kilometers east of Peshawar, near a city called Nowshera. Not the Jammu Nowshera, the other one. So in this seminary, they are so proud that its alumni have gone and captured a country. They are celebrating. And Imran Khan has given them $1 million as reward. How many of you know it? 1 million award to this seminary.
I didn't.
And no one will. And the Imran Khan Niazi also on the 15th August, when they had Taliban had come to Kabul, had said, at last Afghanistan is free from the shackles of slavery. After doing all this, you still think they are absolutely. So that is one of the major mistakes. Of course, the Republicans have come with a counter-terrorism and overview of Afghanistan Act, in which they said, ask these questions: what are you doing with Pakistan? The sanctions should be put. That has come now in 2021, last month or something, they have put up a bill to make it to put this one. So if you really see, right, they were taking US dollars to kill US soldiers. What a ridiculous. Every vehicle which was going across across Pakistan into Afghanistan gave several $100 were given to Pakistan. There are 37,517 seminaries training 4.59 million students in Pakistan. Where are they? 46 lakhs of people are there in the seminary in the pipeline. Where do they employ? Have we understood what they have done? So that particular, so if you really see, now let us come to now. There is a lot of doubt, entire US, whether it is credible, whether it has got its intent clear in future to come. There are a lot of things. Now, I want to tell you about the President Biden's speech to the United Nations General Assembly, 76th Assembly, a couple of days back. He said, I will read out, make no mistakes. The US will continue to defend our allies and our interest against attacks, including terrorist threats, to defend our vital national interests. He has said it in no uncertain term. Another important, which most of us overlook, he has due primacy to the Article 5 of the NATO Constitution. Article 5 means the 30 NATO members. Any attack on any of our members will be considered as an attack on all 30. So Article 5, he has emphasized it in his talk. That's what I'm trying to say. To show his support that I am a reliable partner, I will not leave my allies. So that is. Now, why we feel that US is a decline in power is mainly due to not US has come down, but the other countries have risen up. other countries. Now, for example, let's say in 1960, China's GDP was 11% of the US GDP. In 2019, 67% of US GDP is China's GDP. So, if all other countries are rising and these saturated economies cannot rise to the level of other third world countries or something, which have got all the potential to rise, whereas a saturated economy cannot rise further than that. As I told you, it has got certain limit. 1.5 is maximum which a country can rise, a saturated and a advanced economy. Now coming to the most, Chinese economy also don't feel that it will keep on rising. It has got overheated already. You have seen the Evergrande real estate, which is there, ride-hailing conglomerates like Didi and 9 others have failed. The Ant Group of which is in charge of Alibaba has to pay $3 billion for having monopolistic practices to China. So, and it is also means it's not easy for China also to continue with its same economic rise as hitherto before. And most important, what Biden has done is he has built a network of defense alliances and security arrangements against China in such a way that China is contained and its hostility is subdued. Now, I'll just tell out, US-Philippines Mutual Defense Act is there. US-South Korea is already there with 26,000 troops of US there. US-Taiwan Relationship Act. US-Japan, 54,000 US Marines are there in Okinawa. ANZUS, Australia, New Zealand, United States, a long time, from 50s there is one. The Quad, which was an informal group, has been strengthened, though it remains an informal group, but its agenda has been increased in order to make it open and free, Pacific, and rule-based orders, international order, while no coercion, no expansion in the South China Sea, that has been there. FPDA, though US is not directly a part, 5-power defense agreement, Singapore, Malaysia, Australia, New Zealand, and Britain. That is also there, US allies. Then the recent one, AUKUS. If you really see, this entire thing is around China. So he has understood very clearly where his focus is. And to say, if he was really declining and if he was not really supporting the allies, he would not make a network of defense agreements around China. Huh? No doubt, presently, its credibility, if we see it superficially, abandoned Afghanistan might be there. But it's not going to be easy. Huh? So I think US is doing all its might. And we can, at this point of time, trust US to do better in future because our main adversary is China.
Absolutely. So that is obviously the hope with the allies, partners, and the various groupings that you mentioned, and that's something to be reckoned with. So you mentioned the new grouping AUKUS, and there was a bit of a ruckus with the AUKUS between USA, Britain, and France. Today, France is a bit happy because they've signed a deal with Greece with regards to defense. But till that time, France was sitting like a little child with a swollen face trying to become blue. A lot of people actually question the way that the French were left in the lurch, but understand why it was done. What would you say to this, sir?
Before I tackle France, I'll take India itself. India and Japan had a mixed reaction. Yes. Agreed? Initially. Then we said Quad has nothing to do with AUKUS. Quad remains where it is and AUKUS remains where it is. That is our second statement. Now, if you really see, Quad is an informal grouping. Who is your main enemy? It is China. If there is another defense grouping which is against anti-China, India should welcome it with open arms. See, we have to understand, we are not fighting China on a land frontier alone. Its another frontier of the Pacific seaboard would be opened by a strong defense alliance with the US, UK, and Australia, which will divide the enemy, the Chinese attention towards two different fronts, the Taiwan, USA, Japan, UK. So we should actually welcome it with absolutely warmly. So to say that, but what was our concern initially is the centrality of Quad would get reduced with AUKUS.
Mhm.
But what are you trying to tell me? We are not even ready to blame China. We are not even, when we do a Malabar exercise, we say we have nothing to do with Quad. Australia has just come in. Means we are not even trying to pose a common front against China and tell in no uncertain terms, this is an anti-Chinese Quad which we are forming. We do not want to say that. Our foreign policy, sorry to say, with all whatever improvement it has done, is still a docile one, which will not blame China. Not one, either in the SCO or in the Quad or in the 76th UN General Assembly, the Prime Minister or the Foreign Minister ever taught, even made a reference to the Ladakh, where he has come and captured our no man's land. He's an aggressor. He's coming to Tungjunla day before yesterday,
Yes.
near the Barahoti in Uttarakhand. When an aggressor has come, you don't even want to name him. You are talking of expansion in South China Sea, rule-based order, and whatever centrality of UNCLOS, free and open Pacific, that UN needs to be reformed due to manipulation of China in the ease of doing business. It was trying to manipulate and come up the ladder. You are also not. You also did mention a bit about the origin of COVID. Which President Biden unfortunately did not even ask for the origin. So if you really see, you as a country are still not come out openly. See, China, do not call China a competitor. China is your enemy. If China was not your enemy, you would not claim Arunachal, do the problems there, come to Sikkim, come to Uttarakhand, come to Ladakh, capture the no man's land up to the 1959 LAC. He has almost ipso facto captured the Depsan plains. We have not been able to go beyond the Y junction in the last 2 years plus. What are you trying to say? And still we do not want to blame. Why should anyone have India as its defense partner against China, which is so laggard, which is not even able to tell its own a border is threatened, and border has been what you call incursions have taken place by China. We are actually riding on that groove of bilateralism. Why bilateralism against China? China, because you did not tell a word about Ladakh in the UN General Assembly, he has come down into Barahoti now across Tungjunla. Because as far as the world is concerned, there is everything fine in Ladakh between India and China.
Mm.
So India is one of the most laggard in order to have defense alliance. We cloak our hesitancy by trying to say strategic autonomy. What strategic autonomy? We are so proud of our non-alignment without power. Presently, China is militarily is more powerful, let there be no doubts, but we can give him in situational battles, we will overcome him. But overall, if you see the parity, we are not at parity with China in the military power. This is the time you have to have alliances. Only when you are strong enough, that is the time. Why? US, which is the strongest power, is having alliances with UK and Australia. Why? It should say, I have strategic autonomy. I will fight China on my own. Has it said that? Coming to Afghanistan, it brought all the members, representatives from NATO. Whether 10 people, one fellow, two fellow, doesn't matter. It is a representation which came, the US, NATO. And here you are just talking, I don't know. Firstly, we in India has to welcome AUKUS. It is the best thing which can happen to India because another Pacific Sea front, which was actually dormant, not has been made more powerful.
Yes.
HMS Elizabeth has come, and the carrier group of Britain has come into South China Sea. Just a week before HMS Richmond, one of the British ships went through the Taiwan Strait into as a single ship in order to what you call tell that freedom of navigation is there in the Taiwan Strait as well. So we are seeing more and more Western powers also coming into Asia Pacific. It's a positive note for us. French frigate had come, German frigate had come. French ships had come, and German De Gaulle had come. So you see a lot of forces have coming into Asia, India, Indo-Pacific, and it is to our advantage. Now coming to we are what you call coming to why did we leave out France? That is one of the things which should have been tackled. But when you are doing an important defense treaty, you cannot have what you call meetings with everyone around. It has to be made, and then the situation has to be managed. So that $60 billion worth of conventional submarine deal between Australia and France could have managed better by Australia. As per Australia, we had warned them in before as well, as things were not clear. But there is a compensation clause. So France should claim the compensation. Biden spoke to President Macron for about 30-35 minutes in order to assuage him. And as you rightly said, the Greece deal has also come. And instead of entirely cancelling the entire deal, instead of 8, they could have bought 2 submarines or something like that, conventional submarine, in order to cancel the deal softly rather than harsh. No more submarines required. I think that obviously could have been planned better.
That is interesting. Yes, sir. That's a very good point. Actually, they could have met at a middle ground somewhere.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Because the news also says. Sorry, please go ahead, sir.
No, you tell.
So the news also says that the Australian Prime Minister actually had a word with Prime Minister Modi and told him before the launch of the AUKUS of this entire deal. So Indian Prime Minister knew beforehand about the launch of the AUKUS about a week beforehand, but they didn't speak to the French. And that's something which is, of course, out in the media, and the French have been referring to this for a long time. So, that's something I find to be a bit of a faux pas, and I agree with you, sir.
Yes, there is. It could have been, I agree with your first question, it could have been done better.
Correct, sir.
Now, coming to one more thing of AUKUS, which for 80% of the trade of oil, energy lifelines from Middle East goes through Malacca Strait.
Correct.
I want to 95% of the trade with South Asia, Middle East, Africa, Europe, from China. This is from China I am talking. 80% of oil and 95% of trade goes through Malacca Straits. Just imagine the entire Malacca Straits, Andaman Nicobar, the Australia, US, UK can block this hole easily. Now we have to increase the Quad to Quad Plus. Which are the countries readily coming to us for Quad? That is, one is Vietnam will definitely come. Philippines will definitely come. And with this, and if you take some European powers, France will come. Germany may come. UK may come in Quad.
UK is wanting to, yes.
Wanting to come, if they come. And next, one of the most important regional countries, if we can rope in Indonesia to come, because all exit points from South China Sea, into Indian Ocean has to go through Indonesia. Malacca Strait, Sunda, Lombok, Bombay Strait, all have to come. If you have this Indonesia with you in the Quad, I think China will have its, is absolutely would be at a loss how to overcome this entire chain, which will block its entry into the Indian Ocean.
Correct, sir.
So they are in a very vulnerable position, but we have to act geostrategically and take this country on board in Quad, and then superimpose complement Quad with the AUKUS. That will actually seal the logistic fate and the energy lifeline and trade lifeline of China. So my last recommendation is that Quad should complement with Quad with the Quad Plus.
Division of responsibilities. Let the South China Sea, which is the main battle zone, where we don't want to put in our fingers because it's really far from us, let it be handled by Australia and everything else. Let us look at our Indian Ocean. Let Japan look at the other side. Supplement the forces. Very interesting. So I think that is a...
Yeah. Entire Sunda, Lombok Strait, everything can be. Malacca, Andaman Nicobar is astride Malacca Strait. It has to go through the 10-degree channel, which is occupied islands on both of us. So it can be completely sealed.
With this kind of a situation, domination could be done, sir. Right now, what we are doing is patrolling. But India can dominate the Indian Ocean. Japan can, you know.
Yeah, with intent, we can bottle up China in the first chain of island itself.
Absolutely. That is the breakout point, sir. Post the fall of Taiwan, whenever it does happen, he's broken out. Yeah. And the idea would be to stop it right there. That's a very interesting observation, sir. Excuse me, sir. Sir, as far as US is concerned, they've got a preoccupation with their enemies. There are two such things that I'd like to actually discuss with you. One is, of course, Russia. For some reason, USA always feels that there is a huge threat from Russia. And of course, yes, Russia is not such a docile partner. It kind of creates a little bit of trouble for themselves. But I personally feel is because they want to keep their relevance there as well. The second one is Iran, where, because of whatever reasons, and of course, Israel as well, they've not been able to get over the factor of 1979, as well as the hostage crisis and the killing of the Delta Force and this and that. Do you think this pre-obsession with these two countries, and especially Russia, sir, Iran is, it's a seasonal baby, if I may put it that way, especially Russia, is hindering US's efforts towards China?
Very, very well put. Very well put. Now let's give one or two simile. Just as China's belligerence towards Australia culminated into AUKUS, because they even threatened, if Australia interferes in the Taiwan Strait, we'll hit you with the missiles. So it was the China which pushed Australia into the arms of to make it AUKUS. First thing. Now coming to, it is again China, which by its incursions on the Indian frontier here, there, everywhere, including Ladakh, gave further power and wealth to the Quad. Otherwise, it was just a talking shop.
Yeah.
Now you see its agenda. It actually, though India is still not prepared to call it the security arrangements, though it has got the security open and free Pacific, no expansion, no coercion, and all is there within it. And India joined and invited Australia for Malabar and all is due to the Chinese push which he gave to India. So unwittingly, by absolutely not calculating the geopolitical situation well, China is driving itself into a corner. Now coming to the United States. You are absolutely right when you say that it was the Chinese who drove the Russia into it is the US which drove Russia into the Chinese arms. Now let us say, when the NATO was founded, there were only 12 countries. Okay? Then till 1990, before the disintegration of Soviet Union, 4 more countries joined. So how much it became? 16 countries. In 1991, when Soviet Union became Russia, that was the golden opportunity for America to say the NATO can be frozen now, because the very reason for which you are formed, in order to stem the communist expansion from the East, when that particular nation is not there anymore and when it has split, this is the time they should have invited Russia also into a collective security of Europe. In that way, they would have taken a defeated Russia, a disintegrated Russia, a weak Russia into their fold and become a single pole with a greater statesmanship had they actually displayed at that point of time. Instead of doing that, all the satellite splinter states of the Soviet Union were taken into the NATO in order to pose a greater hostility to a defeated and weak Russia. Bulgaria, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia were taken in 2004. What Russia has no choice but to come up well and show its belligerence. Then in 2009, you took Albania and Croatia. Yes. Then in 2017, you took Montenegro. In 2020, you took North Macedonia. So now there are 28 countries of Europe and 2 of North America, USA and Canada. 30 countries have formed an alliance. And now Russia has nowhere to go but jump into the Chinese fold. Though China's strategic missiles and strategic nuclear weapons is more than the United States, nearly 6,000 strategic weapons. But still, economically and all, it is not in a power, it's not even in the first 5 as per the GDP. So it has, instead of, so at the time being, it has no other option but to go into the Chinese fold. Whereas, rightly told by you, in Iran, Americans are playing their card very well. Do you know how? The recent FBI report of the 9/11 incident has been declassified. That 9/11 declassified, all these fellows, the terrorists who flew the plane, were in contact with the two Saudi Arabian nationals, were in touch with the terrorist. And one of the national Saudi Arabian has the diplomatic pass. Yes. So Saudi Arabian embassy, which is located in US, was helping out these 9/11 terrorists in planning and managing this attack. That is, that FBI report was not declassified. Straight away, why they have done that? In order to tell Saudi Arabia, you are not that big a friend as hitherto before. Another important thing what they have done is, they have withdrawn all their advanced missile systems from Saudi Arabia, including the Patriot batteries, which are placed in order to defend Saudi Arabia against the Houthi rebels and Iranian missiles. All this have also been taken out. And about 3,000, 4,000 what we call American troops are also likely to be evacuated. So as a reprisal, when the Defense Secretary Austin was en route to Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia cancelled his visit.
Correct.
So now what is happening? This is because the oil is no more a vital interest. Carter Doctrine, 1980. The oil is my national, it's a Persian Gulf, is my vital interest. And if anyone attacks that area, we are bound to use our considerable force. Now it is no more because US is a greater oil producer than Saudi Arabia. So entire geopolitics of the Middle East has changed. Now this has made Iran very happy. So Iran is ready to come back into the discussion on the nuclear deal because of the US, what steps US has taken towards Saudi Arabia. So, rightly said by you, unnecessarily Trump was driving Iran into a corner.
Yeah.
With these moves, Iran has been wooed to a certain extent. And Iran has agreed to come to the IAEA talks, International Atomic Energy Agency, those talks. So, you are right. Now coming to Russia. All is not fine between Russia and China also.
Absolutely, yes.
Huh? So, then there is a what you call, there is a reason for it, which I can tackle later. This particular Chinese coming into Afghanistan, Russia would want it to happen because Afghanistan is the fabled graveyard of empires in our earlier discussion. Anyone who comes goes. Russia has already come and crumbled and gone. US has come. Now it wants China to face the music because once that vacuum is there, obviously China will fill it up and it's one more graveyard will be there in the fabled graveyard. That could be one of the reasons what you are mentioning.
True, sir. I think we in India should also give a red carpet to China. Oh, please come.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, sir. That is very interesting, sir. Actually, one thing that one realizes out of this entire thing is that there have been missed opportunities which have put US in a position today of disadvantage. And that's something that comes out very clearly from your talk, sir. It's a wobble that we see most likely. But that wobble is obviously causing a lot of ripples around the world and causing us to actually have this discussion and think more. So my final question to you, US is now looking at changing its priorities towards China. You've mentioned how the AUKUS was pretty much done. I mean, 15th of August, the Afghanistan government or whatever it was over there, the entire army packed up and left and, Taliban came in. Within 30, 35, 40 days, AUKUS has been announced. First summit of the Quad has happened. Patrols are happening, very heavy patrols are happening within the South China Sea. Australia has been given nuclear submarines, which is a very, very, secretive technology. Iran is being spoken to on this side. Pakistan is kind of being pushed down to a large extent. How far that will happen is anybody's discussion. I'd like to know from you, you can see so many events. And normally what happens is when analysis is done, except for a very, very rare occasions, dots are joined, sir. I'd like you to join these dots with me with this event, the series of events that I've told you, and what do you see?
See, ultimately what I'm going to see is Russia, whatever you say, US is predominant with a number of allies. China derives its strength internally and from Russia. Otherwise, who are Chinese allies? North Korea, Cambodia, Pakistan, a bit of Iran. Other than that, 42 countries, they have put them under their debt trap as on now, due to that OBR or BRI initiative. Yeah, right. Now, let us take China and Russia. Russia and China, yeah. All is not well between them. Now, the annexation of Crimea has not been recognized by China.
Correct.
9-dash line of China has not been recognized by Russia. You see, there is a lot of problem. Then, as I told you, the Amur River. The Amur River has grown very porous. And Russia calls it Far East. And the Chinese calls it Hai-Sen-Wai.
Hai-Sen-Wai.
Hai-Sen-Wai is the Vladivostok, the old name of Vladivostok. In 1860, when China was fighting the Second Opium War with the Anglo-French forces, that is the time Russia took the advantage and captured the entire Vladivostok area. So Russia is very careful of its Far East. Though they had signed their borderline agreement in 2008, still China is not at all happy with Vladivostok, and there is a border disagreement there, firstly. Now, what I see all things is, only thing US has to be wise enough to draw Russia away from China, which I feel with the present circumstances will happen automatically. My reasons. First is Afghanistan, okay? North of Afghanistan, the road connectivity into north of Afghanistan is one from Turkmenistan, one from Uzbekistan, and one from Tajikistan. These are going north. And from Afghanistan, two roads from Jalalabad to Peshawar to Karachi, from Kandahar to Quetta and to Gwadar. All this is that main BRI route which is coming. Now let us see Chinese connectivity into this fold of Central Asian Republic and Afghanistan in order to marshal all this Central Asian Republic connectivity with the border or Karachi. They have to come through Kazakhstan because the roads from Kyrgyzstan or Tajikistan or Afghanistan are almost not there, and they cannot be developed to a second extent. Two roads are coming to Kazakhstan. From there, they will come down into Tajikistan, and then it comes to Afghanistan, and then it comes to Pakistan. What is the fear of the Russians? They do not want Chinese into their Central Asian Republic. That's the last thing they want there. So they are looking at this connectivity of Central Asian Republic into Afghanistan with the law, they are quite circumspect about this connectivity. So with this, they would be doing the economic domination of the entire Central Asian Republic. Economic domination means what? They will be in the debt trap. And all these countries would be owe their allegiance instead of to the Russia, but owe their allegiance to China. So SCO membership has taken 4 countries of Central Asian Republic. Russia has joined in order to forestall any greater connectivity and friendship or rapport of Central Asian Republic with China. So the SCO, though an organization, Russia is prominently there in order to defend its national interest and see that Central Asian Republic comes under its domination and not go to Chinese domination.
Soft opposition.
Yeah, soft opposition. Be in it. See, the best way to see that things are not done as per your wish is to be in the organization and then do it. Rather, be from outside, you can't do anything. So now, as I see things unfolding, I feel President Biden has done a fantastic thing by having a network of alliances in the South China Sea. As I told you, 80% of oil, 95% of the trade is already under the AUKUS and Quad of China, which is coming into the energy coming from the Middle East, and for the trade which is there in the South Asia, Africa, Middle East, and Europe. All trade has to come through the Malacca Straits. So who dominates the Malacca Straits? It's the Quad. It's AUKUS. So he is doing his network of alliances. Anti-China has been, I think, is very, very remarkably done. And now China will have to fight its way in order to see that it will expand further. Actually, the BRI initiative has come to a standstill. with the Chinese economy going into a reverse gear. It may come out. I will not sign the epitaph so soon of Chinese economy. It will take a couple of years for it to really get overheated completely or otherwise. So I think the democratic world is in a comfortable situation at this point of time, with Iran trying to come into the nuclear talks, China isolated. You have made China and Russia two absolutely not two friendly powers meet each other. So there are a lot of differences. So let them ruin their differences and try to sort it out. And India is the one which we have to assert that and recognize that China is an enemy and China is not a competitor. And India has to have alliances in order to overcome the present Chinese threat, which is actually is increasing and not reducing.
Correct.
And earlier we take Depsan bulge as hitherto before. We have lost out on Depsan plains. We should not delay this particular anymore and force our petroleum activity across the Y junction into Depsan plain and tell the world in no uncertain terms that China is an aggressor.
I think the Pakistan story is long done and everybody's realized it, so we don't need to harp on it anymore. But China is, I absolutely agree with you. We need to put our foot down and tell people. Mild references are there here and there, but I think it's high time that we come out and say it. But one thing, sir, with your last answer, it also comes out that the USA is also putting India in the center of this entire geopolitical world. We noticed that when the national security advisors and the intelligence heads of all these countries, Iran, Russia, UK, US, all of them landed up in Delhi one fine day. Iran foreign ministers coming in the next month for a meeting as well. So India's position does seem a little bit more strengthened up in terms of its soft power, in terms of its influence. Probably the US is using India as a conduit for, because we have relations with Russians and the Iranians as well. Time will tell. It's an interesting thing. And this thought comes to me when you're actually saying that the US is trying to get Iran and Russia to pacify, to calm down, and to send a message to them that fair enough, we have an obsession with you, but our real enemy is somewhere else right now. Very interesting, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for taking me through this particular journey, and I'm sure all the viewers are going to love and enjoy this conversation. Till next time, sir, for another topic, another day, and another deep analysis. Jai Hind, sir.
Thank you, Adi. It's India coming into the new world order on the top table is what we all aspire, and let it be soon. Thank you and Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, sir.